Hello everyone, my name is Josiah, and I'll be going over study 1, 2, and 3. To begin with study 1, Soren and Armani wanted to see how a person's normal posture correlates with their personality. To test this out, they used several personality and social cognition scales to look at each person's traits. These scales consisted of questionnaires and tests that would gauge different traits like psychopathy, empathy, and impulsivity, and so on. They used this in combination with the procedure to collect the postures of the participants. This process was very similar to what we do now with the stylus pen. However, instead of us taking the pictures or the researchers taking the pictures, the participants would take the pictures and send it themselves. After getting the test results, they used the partial least squares, or PLS for short, to examine if any variables correlated with each other between posture and personality. After sorting them out, they found that an upright posture correlated with a collection of traits which, when put together, made up an antisocial personality, which is what the questionnaires were for before. These traits included psychopathy, endorsement of social hierarchies, and a reduced sense of empathy and anger control. Study 2 was just to see whether or not Soren and Armani's hypothesis was correct and if it still held up. This study was done around 4 to 6 weeks after the first one, and they conducted this one using a copy of their first study and a sample of the participants from their first study as well. Using the sample of people from their initial study, they found that the results over 2 sessions with the same participant were more consistent and more similar than between two different people. Although it was slightly weaker, the posture and personality correlation still went in the same direction and was overall negligible. Study 3 was the relation between natural posture and instructed dominant and submissive poses. The study would examine how a higher amount of antisocial traits would lead to an expression of more dominant postures, and if people who scored lower in the component and had less antisocial traits would have more submissive postures. The study explored the link between body posture and social dominance, using logistic regression classifier, or LRC for short, trained on dominant and submissive postures. Using this, they achieved a classification accuracy of 75%. When this classifier was applied to the natural postures from study 1, those labeled as dominant matched significantly higher on an upright posture component and scored higher in antisocial traits like social dominance orientation, or SDO for short, and primary psychopathy, and lower in empathy, while people with lower antisocial traits scored the opposite and had a more submissive posture. Results showed that participants often expressed more submissive postures with a bent head and torso, and overall a more slouched posture, while dominant postures were held with their hips more forward and leaning back in the torso, overall a usually more upright posture.